Today we're going to make our French baguette dough recipe. We'll start with our bowl and a dough hook. Today we're going to show you how to use it on a mixer. We're going to take our sugar and our yeast and a bit of our water from our recipe. This will begin to dissolve and activate the yeast. Mix that up and set it aside. Now add your flour along with your salt to the mixing bowl. Take a spatula and stir that up. Then we're going to go ahead and add our water that has our oil already added to it. And then we'll take that yeast that's been activated and we'll get that into our bowl as well. Our next step is going to put our bowl on the mixer. So you're going to locate the nub on the back of the bowl to line that up along with the markings on the side and snap it into place. Then we will take our dough hook. We'll match the eye hook to the stem of the mixer. Make sure it's locked in place, and then we'll lift the bowl up. So again, there's that option to lift the bowl up on this particular model. Now let's mix. So here our dough is mixing using the dough hook. It's going to come together a lot faster than when we did it by hand. And our first step is just to bring all the ingredients together and allow the flour to be absorbed by the liquid. Our next step is going to be to mix this just for a few minutes until it comes together and most of the flour is absorbed. Then we are going to stop the machine. We'll lower the machine down and then remove our dough hook so we can remove the bowl from the mixing stand. Our dough should be really kind of moistened, and we're just going to crush it all together and get any of those loose bits at the bottom of the bowl. So now we're going to set this aside for our autolaze period. We're going to actually set this aside for a half hour today, and typically in the bakeries we would do it much longer then we do have time in the classroom to do it. So here we're going to set our timer for 30 minutes and we will come back after 30 minutes and our dough will be ready for the next mixing stage. So now we're back. Our dough has begun to ferment a little bit. It's much softer. It's absorbed all the liquid. Again, we're looking for those markings on the bowl. Line it up to the stand mixer, lock it into place, put your dough hook on, lift the bowl up, and get it mixing yet again. So now once we've mixed it and the dough has mixed for about 5 to 8 minutes, we're going to pull the bowl off, get our dough off the dough hook and out of the bowl. And we're just going to give it one quick knead by hand to kind of bring it together into a nice round ball. Okay, again, that kneading action is really just folding it over on itself and pushing it out. And what we're looking for is for it to bounce back. So when we press on it gently in the center, you're going to see that it bounces back and does not leave an indent. And there you go. We are ready to allow it to rise for the first time. So we're going to put a little bit of our oil into our bowl. This will keep the dough from sticking to the bowl. It'll also give it a nice protective layer on the outside so it does not dry out. Make sure the bowl has the oil all around, and then we'll take that saran wrap and we'll cover the bowl and allow it to rest. So we're going to wait about 2 hours, and here we are after 2 hours. You can see it doubled in size. We're going to press that down, knock all that air out, and we're going to allow it to rise again, probably about another 30 to 45 minutes, or until it doubles in size again. We can also cover it with a towel, and this way it will help keep that nice warmth in. So here we are to about an hour and a half later, about an hour later, excuse me, and it's doubled in size. We're going to bring it out onto our cutting board. You can see an air deflating just a little bit there. We are going to weigh our dough on our scale, and we're going to find out our total weight, and then we're going to divide that by 3. So in this scenario, we had 700 grams of dough, and we are going to now cut this up into 233 grams per portion. This will make sure that we have equal sized loaves so that nothing overcooks or undercooks. Everything bakes at the same time. and is equal of size and weight. All right, so now that we have our 3 equal pieces, the next step is going to be to flour our board and just do a quick pre-shape. So just take those little pieces, if you had any small pieces, and tuck them in, and just do a quick pre-shape on our dough. You can also flour the board with a very thin coat of flour, just so that nothing sticks. And we'll just get 3 of our pieces all pre-shaped and set on our board. And then we'll actually take one of these portions and we're going to cut it down into our dinner roll size. So I'm going to do 1.5 ounce pieces for our dinner rolls, and in this scenario we'll get 5 dinner rolls from this portion. Okay, so again, making sure that our dough is weighed evenly, so this way everything is the same size in the end. So there's our 2 baguette loaves. Here are some loose shaping for our dinner rolls. Make sure that your seams are always on the bottom. So this is just a pre-shape. This is just getting it into form. We're going to allow it to rest again. The resting phase will allow the gluten strands to relax, and it'll also still allow the flavor to develop through the fermentation process. So now that we've allowed that to rest for about 30 minutes, we're back to now shape our breads. So you can keep a little bit of flour, keep it from sticking. And what you're going to do is you're going to press down on the dough. Now you're going to start to roll it in. You can gently stretch it. And now you're going to gently start to roll it in and tuck it in. And then when you get to the end, you're going to make sure you seal the seam really, really well. So in this example here, I had a little bit too much flour on the board. So what I did is I moved the flour away because I was finding that my seam was not holding well together. So I moved the flour away, and then I actually keep a spray bottle nearby, and that spray bottle just moistened it enough so that it would help everything kind of, the seam stick together, and then for me to be able to roll it out. And I roll it out from the center straight out to keep it nice and even, and I somewhat taper the ends. And there's my seam, which always stays on the bottom. On a towel, nice clean towel on the side, I'm going to sprinkle liberally with flour so that the bread does not stick, and I'm going to set it up there on our towel so that it can do one more proof. So again, we'll go ahead and we'll do it with the next piece of dough again. Press out the dough, and then start to fold it in. The more you work the dough, the tougher that it's going to get, so you have to be really careful not to overdo it. Seal those seams using the palm of your hand. Go ahead and then make sure again if there's too much flour, you can get that away. And if you need to use that spray bottle, give it a little spritz, and then go ahead and roll it from the center out while tapering down the edges. And again, looking for the seam, you want to keep the seam on the bottom. Just give that a little pinch, keep that on the bottom, and then go ahead and put that onto our towel as well. And now pull up the towel so that the breads don't stick together. So I'm going to go ahead again now also in shape for my dinner rolls. I bring them together and I roll them nice and tight, and again the seam is going to stay on the bottom, so bring everything into the center. You can do it one by one, you can do it 2 at a time, and then you keep again the seam at the bottom. Put that onto your floured towel, repeat again. If you notice that my hands are actually cupped around the dinner roll, so that allows them to kind of form within my hand as I'm moving it quickly on the board there. And then we have one final one. And so just as an example, if you have too much flour on the board and you go to start to roll it, it actually moves all over the place. So because of all that dry friction. So I try to always find a spot on the board that will allow the dough to roll easily in my hand and not be dried. So now we're going to go ahead and make sure that we tuck up the towel there and then cover it. Put a second towel on top, that'll keep it from drying out. Set that aside. In the meantime, we're going to preheat our oven to 400 degrees. And now after about 15-20 minutes, we see that they have now doubled again in size. We're going to use a quarter pan for our rolls. So gently move them over, making sure you set them up and space them so they have baking space. And then we took a piece of cardboard, cover it with aluminum foil, and we're going to use this as our way to transfer our breads over onto our sheet pan. So we're going to roll it onto the board, and then we're going to flip it back onto the sheet pan very carefully to keep it from deflating. Now we're going to use a very sharp knife, and so I'll do a baguette again. So I had a hard time cutting, and again, spray bottle. That little bit of moisture will allow enough friction so that I can slice and make my score marks. So that's one. The second one that we're going to do is an epi. So we're going to use a pair of scissors, and we're actually going to cut about 3/4 of the way through. A little difficult to see with my arm, but I'll show you the final piece that after you cut, you're going to keep on twisting and turning each cut so it looks like a wheat, and then you'll see. And so this one could be used for a decorative piece in a bread display, or could be pulled apart as another form of a dinner roll. And then for our dinner rolls, same thing, little spritz of water, score them. You can score them in a straight line, you can put an X, you can cut them like the epi, you can go around the side, and you could do 3 different cuts. So different options, it'll just give you a different look. All right, so let's get that to the oven. So here we are in the oven. Again, a little spritz of water for some steam. We're at 400 degrees. I put those on the top shelf. And then again, the same thing. So if you notice, I keep closing the oven door because I want to keep the heat and the steam in there. So now again, I do it with my epi and my baguette. And the one thing I want to point out is at the bottom of my oven, I have a little bit of water that's been in there. You can see that steam, and that also helps with the baking process. Here's our final result. So here we did not use a glaze like we did yesterday in yesterday's video, so it's much lighter in color. Same thing though, we're looking to hear that hollow sound, golden brown, and then we're going to put it on a cooling rack to allow it to cool. And that is another variation of our French bread.